So first off, can you tell me your name and what you do?
Hi, I am Cindy Rosenthal. I'm professor of drama and dance at Hofstra University, and I'm also a working director, an actor, and scholar. And I'm currently working here at Hofstra, which is going up tomorrow night.
Can you tell me about it?
Yeah. So Working is a musical that is based on a book that was written by Studs Terkel back in the 1970s. He was a journalist, documentarian, and the book was a revolution in its moment because nobody had really thought it was interesting or important to hear from ordinary people about their day-to-day lives. The book was simply about what is working in America. And it's a little bit critical of how workers are looked at, and their lives aren't always very happy, but they strive to make themselves find meaning in their work or find meaning in their lives in spite of their work. And that's what the book is about. At the end of the 70s, it was made into a musical by a number of composers and writers, which is also a radical step, because generally you think of a musical, it's written by one person or two, but to have like 5 different composers work on it and writers was unusual. So that's one of the challenges and also one of the opportunities of this show.
How long have you been at Hofstra as a director and as a teacher and everything?
Yeah, I started in a division of Hofstra that doesn't exist anymore, which was called New College. It was a really small interdisciplinary program, and I started here in the fall of 1998. But then that sadly went away because of lack of enrollment and some other things. And so in 2006, I was shifted over to the main campus, and I've been in the drama department ever since 2006, and I've been directing from pretty much from when I started, even in New College, and all the way through my time here in the drama and dance department.
So as a director, generally, what do you have to do?
As a director,
what do you have to do?
Oh gosh! Oh, you have to do many things. Well, you know, the first thing you need to do as a director is think about what is your vision. What is your way of seeing this play or this production that is going to make it specific to how you see the world, but also how it will have an impact on the world right now. You know, it's very important to do something that matters to your spectators, your audiences that'll be in the room, or in this case, in the Zoom room. So, you know, COVID times definitely informs our production, for sure. So that's one thing you do. Then, of course, you have to cast your play. You have to think about who you want to put in the roles and how they'll all work together. Then you talk to and you work with designers to figure out how you're going to make the world come forward in a visual, in an oral, in a textual way. And then you start rehearsing, which first involves just a read-through of the script with your actors, and then you break it down, literally, like sometimes word for word. You do what is called table work, where you sit and you understand what's the text. In the case of a musical, you learn the music, and you learn choreography, and you put that all together. But in this time, we're also adding in film. We have a whole filmed sequence. Every single one of the songs had to be audio recorded, like in a studio, and then filmed. And so the whole thing is this weave of live Zoom woven with film, and then pre-recorded music that is then an added layer of recorded choreography is on top of that. So that's all about how the director puts it together, and that was not anything I had ever done before.
Tell me more about that with COVID and everything. How did that shift your performances now and your rehearsals now?
Well, honestly, the reason why we're doing Working is because it was a piece that lent itself more easily, in terms of a musical, to this strange mode better than almost anything else. It's a piece that, as I was saying, is made up of different composers' work, but it's very much based on the interviews that Studs Terkel did with working people that was in the book, and so it's a monologue, and then another monologue, and then another monologue, and then another monologue. So it's much easier to capture those kinds of one-off things on Zoom. than it would be if we had a scene between many scenes. There's maybe one scene, two scenes in the whole play, in the whole piece. There are really a lot of monologues. And then, of course, there's musical numbers, but those were pre-recorded. So it has worked out as best, I think, as it could, choosing working for this time.
How was it doing the rehearsals specifically with all this going on? What did you do?
Yeah,
How did you adapt?
it's a really interesting question, because we came into this at the beginning, as you know, of the semester. It was a very bad time in terms of numbers, like in New York and on Long Island, and we were told no in-person, couldn't do any in-person. Thankfully, as you also know, I'm sure the numbers have gotten better, because it seemed essential that we have some in-person rehearsals. Just simply learning the music over Zoom would really not work. So we worked in very small groups, learning the music, learning the choreography in person. That stuff happened in person. Almost all of the acting rehearsals happened on Zoom, because ultimately what you're going to see when you watch the production is a lot of acting, as in the monologues are on Zoom, so we mixed it up. There was some live rehearsals, and there were some Zoom rehearsals.
What about any issues that arose because of COVID? Did anybody in the cast get it? You don't have to go into
Yes, I won't
details,
say
but
names, but nobody actually had, somebody in the cast had, two people in the cast had COVID before they came to campus, so they were still in some ways struggling with some symptoms. A couple of people at different times, including right now, are having to be sequestered because people in their homes are dealing with things or have been exposed. So as a result, so in a way it's a miracle that we're doing this on Zoom, because they can be in their homes and be in the play. You know, if somebody was sick and they couldn't, it would be, that's it, it's over, right?
Yeah.
So there's a strange miracle involved in how we've learned to sequester ourselves and quarantine and still get a lot done.
I love this really optimistic way to look at that. I love that.
Well, it's I tend to be the person that looks at things with the half full glass as opposed to the half empty glass, and I feel like if I didn't come into this with that attitude, couldn't happen. You have to just keep saying, oh, how can we work with this in a good way? It was an ongoing process.
What about masks during the rehearsal and the performances?
Always. Well, so that's the other interesting thing. Every rehearsal always masked. As you will see, when and if you see the show, everything you see, every singer, every choreographed moment, masked. Every outside film sequence, masked. However, since there are these in their rooms Zoom monologues, almost all of those are not masked.
Right.
So you go from a lot of masks to not masked, which is great. So you actually do get to see people's faces, and then hopefully you can remember those faces when you're seeing them with masks.
So the casting process, was that in person or was that over Zoom? How did that all work?
That was in person. God, this seems like a long time ago, but it was back in December. And if you remember, really not until the middle-ish of December, we were done with school by then. We were done with school. No, it was in November. It was before, obviously, we were done here by Thanksgiving. I just was remembering that now. So it was early November that we did the auditions. And in that moment, early November was about the last time things were pretty good. I think they're getting really good now, but in terms of the fall, winter, it was about the best. By Thanksgiving, things got terrible again, or started to. So we had in-person auditions, and we handled them the best way we could, where it was only, one person in a room with me and the musical director and the choreographer and the accompanist at a time. So there were never more than 4 people in a room, and singing and acting, and we just moved them quickly, and it was great. It was great to get to see them in person, obviously.
Yeah. Did you learn anything from having to adapt because of COVID that you'll maybe take in the future, or anything that
That's
you're
a great
thinking
question,
about?
and I was just thinking about that interestingly as I was driving here, because I was listening on NPR to an interview with Lupita Nyong'o, who's a wonderful actor, who's doing a production of Romeo and Juliet on Zoom. I think it's actually a radio performance, and she was talking about the ways in which she had to make adjustments, and I was thinking along those lines. So what have we had to do? Well, in a strange way, it's like being in a film. You have to make your mark. You have to hit your mark. There's a lot of precision work that one never had to deal with before, that I think I've learned something from in having to deal with, that there's value in really understanding, kind of the best way for the voice to happen within a small space and or within tech that is not always controllable. I mean, how can you best handle that? Having to direct people through the Zoom window as opposed to in person is something different, and I'm learning what that is. It was never my desire, honestly, to do. Well, I can't say that for sure. I mean, I might have been interested in film, but I never have done it exclusively, and or television and or screen stuff was always my last interest. But you have to adapt. So I guess I've gotten new respect for and understanding of that form, and maybe would be interested in including more different kinds of media in what I do in live theater going forward.
Yeah, that's so cool. So where and when is the show, and how can people watch it?
Yeah, so it's tomorrow night. We have our opening at 8 p.m. It's online. So if you, I don't have the sort of link memorized in my head, but if you go onto any social media thing that's affiliated with the Department of Drama and Dance here at Hofstra, the link is readily available. I assume it's also on the Drama and Dance just like web page, on Hofstra's webpage. You Google, you will find. But the link it's free for everyone in the world. So anyone in the world can see it. And we're ready to rock and roll. We're ready to have an audience. The sad thing, of course, is that unlike every other experience of an opening night, you would hear the crowd outside and you would get the applause at the end. And my actors who work so hard won't get that. But they'll get the feedback from their friends and their family from all over the world. So that's pretty cool.
Is it only tomorrow the 18th?
Oh, no. Oh, sorry. I should have made that clear.
Okay.
We open tomorrow. We are performing Friday and Saturday night of this weekend, and next weekend at 8 o'clock, and Sunday at 2 this weekend, and Sunday at 2 the following weekend. So we have 2 weekends of runs, 6 possible opportunities.
Great. Is there anything else that you want to mention to me, or anything else about the show that you think is interesting?
I just want to say I think, the student actors have done an extraordinary job. In the same way that I had to learn a real huge amount of new things, so did they, and they just did it. So in a way, the show is about working. These students really have gotten to understand the work of, actors under challenge and some trauma, actually, but they have persevered, and I think it's wonderful, and I'm really excited that they're going to give voice to, again, these under-illuminated folks in our society and in our culture who are just the everyday working humans that you don't think about that much, but now you will.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.